Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're tackling one of the most frustrating and, let's be honest, infuriating narratives being pushed down our throats. The idea that America is thriving. Yes, you heard me right, thriving. According to the media elites and their favorite talking heads, we're living in the best economic era in the history of humanity. The only problem? No one told the rest of us. Take John Harwood, a so-called journalist with an impressive resume: Wall Street Journal, New York Times, NBC, CNN. You name it, he's been there. This guy had the audacity to say, "The craziest thing about this election is that we have a very good economy, the best in the world, and so many people feel and act and pretend that it's bad." Pretend? Really? So when 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, they're just pretending? When over 100 million Americans are drowning in medical debt, is that just a fun little role play? Here's the reality Harwood and his friends on cable news don't want to admit. For millions of Americans, life isn't just hard. It's a constant struggle. Think about this. More than half the country can't afford a $250,000 home. Let's not even get started on the rising costs of basic necessities. Gas prices have skyrocketed by 51%. Electricity is up by 32%. And groceries? Eggs alone have gone from 99 cents a dozen to prices so high you can't even afford to throw them in protest anymore. But no, Harwood insists we're all just being dramatic. This is why people don't trust the mainstream media anymore. They live in a bubble, completely insulated from the realities of everyday Americans. They sit in their fancy studios, collecting their 6- or 7-figure paychecks, and tell us everything's fine. Let me tell you what's actually happening. Since the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the media landscape has been gutted. Before that, we had about 50 major media companies providing diverse perspectives. Today, there are 6. 6 billionaire-owned companies control almost everything you see, read, and hear. And those billionaires aren't interested in journalism. They're interested in protecting their wealth and their power. That's why media companies hire people like John Harwood. They don't want reporters who challenge the status quo. They want PR specialists for the elite. And where do they find them? Ivy League schools like Columbia or Northwestern. These institutions churn out class loyalists, people trained to uphold the system rather than question it. Gone are the days of blue-collar journalists fighting to expose corruption. Now it's all about maintaining access, playing nice with the rich and powerful, and spinning narratives that keep regular folks in the dark. And it's not just the media. This class loyalty extends into politics, too. Let's talk about the Democrats for a moment. Remember the last election cycle? They brought in Hillary Clinton, yes, the same Hillary who lost to Donald Trump, to give advice on how to win. It's like asking a pyromaniac for fire safety tips. She lost with the entire media machine behind her, with every institution working in her favor, and yet she still managed to fail spectacularly. And this is the person they turn to for guidance? But it gets worse. Instead of reflecting on their mistakes, the Democratic establishment doubled down on identity politics and gaslighting. Don't like Kamala Harris? Well, you must be a misogynist. Criticize Joe Biden? Clearly, you're anti-democracy. This is their strategy. Blame the voters, not the politicians. It's no wonder people are tuning out. Even Hollywood liberals are starting to catch on. Adam McKay, the director of Don't Look Up, called out the Democrats for their blatant lies. He pointed out how they ignored Biden's cognitive issues, refused to consider new candidates, and completely avoided talking about healthcare reform. This is a party that claims to be for the people, yet they embrace fracking, cozy up to war criminals, and turn a blind eye to human suffering, like the year-long slaughter of children in Gaza. And what about the economy? The elites love to throw around numbers that make everything seem rosy. GDP is up. The stock market is booming. Unemployment is down. But none of that reflects the reality for average Americans. Here's a statistic you won't hear on CNN. Cubans have a higher life expectancy than Americans. Think about that. A country that has been under a U.S. embargo for decades, a country painted as a failure, is managing to provide better healthcare and longer lives for its people. But you won't hear that from the mainstream media. Why? Because their job isn't to inform you, it's to pacify you. They want you to believe that the system works, that any problems you face are your own fault. Struggling to make ends meet? Maybe you're just not working hard enough. Can't afford healthcare? Well, maybe you should have chosen a better job. It's all about shifting the blame onto the individual while protecting the powerful. This is the narrative they push. Rich kids telling poor kids that other poor kids are the problem. And it's not just in the media. It's in politics, in corporate boardrooms, in every corner of society where the elites hold sway. They create division, pitting us against each other, while they hoard wealth and resources. And let's not forget the role of conformity. In these elite circles, independent thought isn't rewarded. It's punished. Whether it's in Hollywood, the media, or politics, the message is clear. Toe the line or you're out. That's why we end up with these out-of-touch narratives about how great everything is, despite all evidence to the contrary. Here's the bottom line. The system is rigged. The media, the political establishment, the corporate elite, they're all working together to maintain their power and wealth at our expense. They don't care about us. They don't care about the struggles we face every day. And they certainly don't care about fixing the system. But here's the thing, we don't have to accept this. We don't have to buy into their lies. We can demand better. We can push for real journalism, real representation, and real change. It starts with turning off the noise, digging into the facts, and asking the hard questions. Because at the end of the day, it's not about left versus right. It's about right versus wrong. It's about standing up for ourselves, for our families, for our communities. The elites have had their way for far too long. It's time we take back the narrative. So let's do it. Let's stop pretending everything's fine when it's not. Let's stop listening to people who have no idea what our lives are like. And let's start building a system that works for all of us, not just the privileged few. That's how we win.